You're listening to the Ground Transportation Podcast with Ken Lucci of Driving Transactions and James Blaine of PAX Training. Learn how you can build a thriving transportation business with real profits, repeat clients, and enterprise value. And now for your hosts, Ken and James.
Well, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Ground Transportation Operator Podcast. My name is Ken Lucci from Driving Transactions. My faithful compadre, James Blaine from PAX Training.
Hey, everybody.
And we are really pleased to introduce a gentleman named Adam Warren. Adam, say hello.
Hey, everyone. Happy to be here. Thank you for the conversation today.
So I have to tell you a little background about Adam represents a company called InDrive, which we came across doing a little bit of financial analysis. And InDrive is a company that operates in 470 countries, roughly. Is probably the largest passenger transportation company that I've never heard of. 6,000 employees, great growth, 4.5. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
But 4.5 billion in trip volume, and they're on the rideshare side of the industry, and they have an extremely intriguing value proposition. And we're so happy that Adam's going to talk about his background and talk about the company. So, Adam, the floor is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about InDrive and how we're different. I've been in the automobile transportation space my whole life. So I actually went to college for communications. I thought I was going to be doing a lot more podcasting on the other end like you guys. Was really interested in radio kind of growing up. So I just happened to get a job at CarMax, a used car dealer here in the United States.
Sure.
Worked there for 20 years, worked my way up, kind of did everything behind the scenes from all the logistics of transportation and how do we get these cars ready for sale. And so that kind of took me to my second spot. So I've only had 3 jobs in my life. So let me just put that out there. And so my second job after working there 17 years was Lyft. And so Lyft wanted me to come and build a fleet program. How do we sit there and connect and have our own product, be able to rent and lease these vehicles out to rideshare drivers, gig economy workers. So we're able to kind of build that infrastructure, and then I kind of grew up in the rideshare space.
How long were you there?
I was at Lyft for about 5 years.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, InDrive came calling. I was like, I don't know who these people are.
They recruited you out of Lyft.
I was like, yeah. Who
are you?
Who are these individuals? Yeah. So got to learn a lot about them. Obviously, I think that the value proposition is super interesting. So,
Very.
So now I'm here at InDrive. So I've been here well over a year, working on my second year here, and look forward to many more, obviously.
So InDrive was founded by, I forget his name, I apologize.
His name is Arsen Tomsky. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. So this company's been around 11 years. So
Interesting.
You kind of set it up very interesting here at the beginning. If you think about it, and what's unique is that we're the second largest rideshare company in the world, and you've never heard about us here in the United States.
No.
Never.
Wild.
I've asked operators, hey, did you ever hear of these guys? And full disclosure, we did an executive briefing on your company, and you
Sure.
guys were really nice enough to correct my draft to make sure that we were completely accurate. But I don't get intrigued by many things anymore. But
Sure.
this is incredibly it's very altruistic, but it's not an altruistic startup. It's 4.5 billion in trips, and I think it's incredible for us to say you are the second largest, but you also, what is it, the number 3 or number 4 most downloaded travel app, right?
Number four in the world, worldwide. We have over 250 million downloads of our
Wow.
application out there in the world. So it's super unique. I can go ahead and give you like new
Wait.
updates. We have now just recently completed 5 billion rides worldwide. So we just hit the 5 billion mark.
Nice.
So
Well, and
continuing
Adam,
to go.
can you kind of back up for a second,
Sure,
right? Kind of
of
like
course.
Ken said, you guys are huge, you guys are massive, but there's so many people, operators, heck, myself included, that
Yeah.
had never heard of you guys, right? That it's well, who is this company?
And where'd you
can
start? Where did you
exactly?
go from there?
Yeah. Can you tell us kind of where you guys
course.
came from? Kind of what makes you different? You know, people think of
Absolutely.
a typical TNC, but I know you're not, right? You're completely different.
Completely and utterly different. So
Yep.
let's kind of talk about the history. 11 years ago, it's New Year's Eve. It's in Siberia. It's minus 49 degrees Fahrenheit.
Whew.
All right. So I'm setting up the stage.
Hey, but to win what? This is New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve,
In
11 years
Siberia.
ago,
In Siberia.
minus 49 degrees
That's
Fahrenheit.
exactly where I want to be on my new.
I'm hoping you
not-
weren't
not me.
personally there for this
No,
part.
no.
Okay.
I'm a good old Southern boy here in the United States, so I I don't know about that cold.
So, okay.
So minus 49, everybody's out partying, and all of the taxi services kind of gathered up together, and they were like, "Hey, we have a captive audience. It's super cold. They're not going to want to walk
no.
home," and so they developed their own surge pricing before surge pricing had a name.
Wow.
And so the local taxi companies bumped up the price 300, 400, 500% than what they were expecting. It infuriated the local population, so they were upset. So our founder was upset as well, and he basically started this company as a Facebook group and basically put on the board saying, "Hey, I'm going here. Is anybody going in that direction? I'm willing to pay this much money." And the whole company got started just like that. And next thing you know, it took off, and like poof, they started this business and built out their application, and then continued to grow. And so we're in 46 countries around the world,
Yeah.
over 700 plus cities that
Yeah.
we're currently active in. And our founders really started this business in emerging markets. So not developed countries like the United States, Europe, et cetera. So what are these emerging markets where basically wage discrimination happens at a very high level, if you think about it, where kind of the workforce and the labor force are kind of not treated as fairly as they are in some countries. And so they came up with this system and kind of rolled it out and developed it from there. And so at the end of the day, here's what InDrive is. We are a peer-to-peer marketplace for rideshare. So what does that mean? It means that I don't set the market. I don't set the pricing. It is completely handled between the passenger and the driver. So the driver agrees on that particular fare, and then the passenger gets to participate as well. And I'll go into a little bit of details of kind of how it works. But what I can tell you is that it takes some of our competitors many engineers to kind of set these pricing algorithms in the background. And so just by having that not be a component of our business allows for such cleaner, simpler operations on our end, because I don't have these crazy algorithms that we're having to continuously adjust. And then that allows me to take the lowest commission in the industry.
And you also don't have the self-perpetuating job security of all these hundreds of engineers.
Yep.
So, I mean, this is a very important point, because I've read both companies' public reports, and the huge amount that they spend on software engineers is unbelievable. So,
It's insane.
So when you take a look at, you are a much flatter organization.
And that is the competitive advantage that we have. That is the reason why we're able to grow as fast as we can continue to grow, is because we don't have that kind of in the background. And the marketplace is different everywhere, right? So in Lima, Peru, it's completely different than Mexico City, which is different than Cairo. I mean, you can just go on and on and on. And so you fast forward to last year, that it's unique to build such a huge business without being in the United States. Like, it's kind of odd.
So
like,
you went
honestly.
from where to where to where, would you say? What was your transition?
As far as InDrive kind of continuing to grow and develop
Yes.
across the country.
Where did you start? Where did you get critical mass where you guys said, holy crap, we're really onto something. We need to really, and the strategy of moving globally. How did you guys choose that?
So, like I said, emerging markets, that was kind of the first criteria. Where can we sit there and kind of help people have a better living and make a better wage and get people around safely? Those were kind of the ultimate criterias. Where you started to see critical mass, India is a big market. Like,
huge.
India's massive. Egypt for us took off. So we're in those North African countries, started taking off. And then once they got to Latin America, the Mexicos, the Brazils, like I said, in Peru, I keep highlighting that because it's like, I'm just dumbfounded how big Lima, Peru is for us. Like, it blows my mind. I'm like, I can't believe there's that many people to even do that many rides. So those critical mass points allowed for pretty aggressive development throughout Latin America. And so kind of taking those learnings, understanding that we're not in developing countries or developed countries, they came up with the strategy. It's like, great, let's dip our toe in the water. We know that there's two big players in the marketplace. How can we come in, compete, give a different value proposition, and give them a run for their money? And so we launched last year in Miami, Florida. So that was our first U.S. market. And so, when you think about Miami, it's such a cultural melting pot.
Absolutely.
And so many people from Latin American countries, like all of those countries, either are coming through, or currently live there.
Yeah.
So we instantly had brand recognition. So
Because
I know,
So they've been using you.
Yeah, for me and you two, no idea, right? But for them, it's like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that is. And so ended up signing up way more drivers than I could have ever anticipated. And it just grew exponentially. So wonderful first go around. I was able to actually be really methodical, look at what works in the United States, what doesn't, like what features work, what don't, and start really kind of developing the product along the way.
Can you give us
I
an
think
example
that's
of
important.
that? What doesn't work, do you think?
Well, and we'll kind of get into the negotiation model, which makes us completely different. But it's very simple, even UI type of experiences on the app. Everything from how the map looks to how the pricing looks. Like we had, like in our app, when we started, if you were doing a ride for $15.80, it would be 15,8.
Sure.
And so just it's little cultural things that work around the world.
Sure.
So you wouldn't think that that's a big deal, but in order to kind of get that mass appeal, like we want it to feel like it is homegrown here in the United States.
There's expectations with anything, right?
Completely.
And I always tell people to think of when I go to a website and I'm on my phone, you always look for those three little horizontal bars, and that's how you get to the menu. And every once in a while you go to a website where the designer thinks, oh, I'm gonna be smart, I'm gonna be cool, I'm gonna do something different. And what happens is immediately you go to that website and you're going, how the heck do I open the menu? How do I get to the next page? So that makes complete sense in having to kind of tailor that to the market and the expectations.
So what would you say you learned in Miami? What did you not expect, and what were you pleasantly surprised at?
So, it's hard to have grandiose expectations, but what I'm I guess I'm not very surprised. I guess it ultimately makes sense. But our early adopters were commuters, like people who don't necessarily have, reliable transportation. this commuter base knows that they can get to point A and point B safely, very economically, like et cetera, et cetera. And so for whatever reason, I think that my preconceived notion was, especially with Miami, I know that a large portion of rides that take place in South Florida happen between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. Like, this was a known fact. I totally understood, the nightlife and how it is down there. So I really thought that was going to be some of our bread and butter. People coming out of events, there's surge pricing going on. Let me see what I can do on InDrive, get this ride cheaper, and kind of go from there. But that's not necessarily the case. Those commuters really adopted to us and make up a large portion of our consumer base down in South Florida, which I'm thankful. Like, it's great, and it's kind of helping me kind of build the initial marketing strategy, like, as we kind of grow forward in some of our expansion plans, because I know that they adapt to it very quickly, and then I can continue to tweak and learn and chip away at market share bit by bit.
So is it fair to say that your first consumer persona is someone that, if they didn't use InDrive, they were going to use one of the other two, or they might be taking a public bus? Okay. Yeah. So you probably do have people, housekeeping staff, blue collar workers, as you say, early morning, getting to work. Yep. That's just phenomenal. So how has the marketplace concept taken off in Miami compared to, wait a minute, you're not telling me how much the price is, or I'm able to negotiate a little bit. How is that taken off for you guys?
Yeah. So if you kind of think about it from this standpoint, so since I do not set the marketplace, right, there's a heightened level of transparency that we're able to provide everybody. So what do I mean? If you use our competitors, you have no say in who's picking you up. Like, it's just going to matchmake you with somebody. You're able to, you'll see their different offerings. So there are different lines, whether it's a luxury ride, different levels. So you get to see that. If you close out of the app, 10 minutes later, that price could have gone up 20, 30%, like, instantly. And you're like, oh man, I was just checking to see what the price is, and now it's $15 more to do the same.
And I think it's worse than that. I have my sister who does extremely well in real estate, but she'll take Uber, to and from the same places. And she'll, like, one night it cost me $18, another night it cost me $48. How can I plan? I'm like, you can't.
You can't. And you could almost literally cross the street and leaving from the restaurant you walked across over to the shop, and you're going to get a different price.
And that is maddening in any consumer transaction.
Oh, yeah.
The other piece of that puzzle, and maybe you'll get into it, is the business side of things. I mean, how do you turn in an expense report that said, I went from my house to the airport for $70, but by the way, on the way back, it cost me $375 for the same trip, right? That's, to me, the biggest issue with corporate adoption of those other two. And I'm glad we're not giving their name, logo, their brands any airtime, by the way.
So think about this.
And hold on, Adam, can you back up for a second? I think before we dive into that, walk us through what this transaction actually looks like, right? Because in my head, I'm thinking, I pull an app out and I throw a number out there. I mean, who's going to grab it? And I know that's not technically how it works. So how does this process actually work?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say that we're in Miami, and let's say that we're at the airport.
Okay.
And you want to get a ride to South Beach. You go onto the app as a passenger, and let's say that I'm willing to pay $20 to go from point A to point B. That $20 ride then goes out to every driver in the vicinity. So every driver who is active and has our app on will see that Adam is willing to go, or wants to go, from Miami Airport to the beach. He's willing to pay $20. So it's not going to one driver. all drivers in that vicinity see it. So you can see 10, 20, 30 drivers see that order. So now it's on the driver's hand. Are they willing to come and do that ride for $20? Or, maybe I have a Chevy Suburban. It's a little bit nicer.
Sure.
I do livery on the side. I'm willing to do it for $27. Well, that driver can put that in and it comes back to me. So all the bids come back. So, and I recently said this in another article, but we average, you'll average 4 to 8 bids from drivers.
How fast?
Within about 30 to 45 seconds.
That's unbelievable.
So you'll see it. And I'm lowballing it because I've been in situations where I've gotten like 20 bids. So, but I'm giving you the average ultimately.
And then do you guys suggest a price, right? The other thing that comes out to me as a consumer is, if I'm, I'm going from Miami to the Lowe Hotel, right?
Sure.
It's right there. It's real quick. I have no idea what to kind of even think about that.
Yep.
I don't want to throw a number out that's too high and give them a field day, but I also don't know where to start. So, do you guys give them some kind of direction? Do you make that kind of painless for them?
Of course. I mean, ironically, you go back to what did we learn in Miami and what did we need to tweak? Well, we did not have that feature on to start. So consumers did not know what to do. They didn't know how to kind of adjust the marketplace. So we helped them. In the banner, it says, here's the recommended price for the trip that you're looking to go on. And it has to do with distance and, mileage, et cetera.
And time.
But here's the recommended price. let's say for that same ride, it's recommending $22.80 is the recommended price for that $20 trip that I was kind of referring to, the example. I can still put in $20. So I can totally still do that from a consumer-based standpoint. But we want to give them sort of like, hey, in a roundabout way, like the most fair and equitable price is going to be this. Because on the other end, a driver does not have to accept my $20, right? They don't have to.
Nobody might accept it.
Yeah, they might not. And so you'll get feedback very quickly on the fact that nobody wants to bid. And something will pop up on our screen after a certain time. Hey, you might want to think about raising this bid,
right?
And then that wave will continue.
That's algorithmic, though.
No,
it's an actual. It's an actual person.
It's the consumer. It's the person who's calling the ride. So we just state, hey, you're not getting any bids. You might want to raise this to make this more enticing.
When I bid, if are you giving any information on me like Ken has completed 5,500 rides. People love him. He's got a 4.9.
Absolutely.
James is a buck cheaper, but he's only done 500 rides, and he's got a miserable 3.7.
Absolutely. Those are super important metrics because there is a component of wanting to communicate with the community to give feedback, because I do think it's important. Because look, my mandate is to ensure that drivers are treated fairly and passengers have a safe, reliable, great experience.
So let's talk about the safety aspect for a second.
Have to do it. It's super important.
So, the other, prior companies really fought background checking. There's some could argue some holes in there.
Sure.
First of all, they've had an abysmal history of fighting, and they've had some real safety issues. And they do their own self-serving internal safety reporting rather than hiring real safety companies. Tell us about your process. If Ken wants to become a driver, he's got an absolutely clean record. Every way his driver's license is clean, his background is clean. And then you have James, who's like got 27 speeding tickets. He may have a bad background as far as his criminality is concerned.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about your process.
Well, I can tell you, Ken, you're going to be accepted, and James, sorry, it's a no-go. You're not going to be able to hang out with us.
In this example,
of course.
In this example, I absolutely switched us, okay? Because I have the bad background. James has got everything going for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, it's a very extensive process. It does take some time to be approved to be a driver. It is one of the reasons why we start that process when we're looking at a new market months in advance, because it takes a lot of time.
Boots on
There's
the
a lot
ground in
of-
Miami
What's-
boots on the ground before you launch?
Yeah, we were recruiting drivers for months before we launched.
And
Because-
physically doing physical interviews or all over the internet?
Yeah.
Awesome.
All anything and above, whether it's going to an airport, cell phone waiting area and talking to the drivers waiting up in the queue.
We do the same thing. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's super important. Like, where are the people kind of congregated who are interested in doing these services? Like, that's where we need to go and talk to. We'll do lots of customer development. I've personally done a lot of different recruiting rides, and especially if I get into a vehicle and I have a really great experience, you better believe I am recruiting like nobody's business. You
So-
better believe it.
How had the driver communities that are, frankly, and we monitor, part of what we do is we have a researcher monitor the Facebook groups of those other two companies. And, I will tell you, it's very difficult to even find someone who likes and believes they're treated fairly. That's the exception.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How did the driver pool of existing TNC, how did they react to you in Miami?
Thankfully, with a little bit of gratefulness, and let me tell you why. Being transparent and simple is very important, I believe, in this industry. So they get to see exactly where these riders are going. Like, there's a level of transparency. It's like, oh, this person's going from here to here. I know how long that's going to take me. I've been doing this for a long time. I can kind of set what I want to make. And they get to see what the rider is willing to pay.
You're giving them control.
That's
the big thing with the other TNCs is you're
They
blind.
don't.
You don't know if you're going to the airport or 3 cities over.
And
You
by,
have no
by
idea.
the way, Adam, do I, if I'm an abusive rider,
Yep, of course.
do the drivers know my background? Like that I drink in the
Yes.
car and I swear
Yeah.
and I...
Absolutely. Like, we have to be completely transparent. Like, I have to keep the whole, like, I care about keeping the entire community safe.
Sure.
So drivers to me in this industry are the most valuable commodity, and I need to make sure that they're happy. I'm not doing the rides. Like, I'm not out there doing that work. So I need to make sure that I'm treating them fair and consistent. But think about it like this. Most of our competitors, they only see what they're going to get paid. So it's like, oh, I'm going to get paid, $6.88 for this ride. That's all that they can see. But me as the consumer could have paid $25, $26, $27.
And I know
this is true.
It's
This is
true.
a very true story.
And I know a lot of Uber drivers, said the word, a lot of TNC drivers, the passenger will say to them, geez, I paid $30 for this. I hope you get a lot of that. And the driver will say, I get $9 out of that.
Yeah.
You
if
know?
that.
So, it's interesting to me, and I'm just going to say it, your business model from jump, your business model from inception
Yep.
is based around fairness
Yep.
to the driver as a number one priority, and not the shell game on,
No.
today you're going to get paid this, tomorrow you're going to do. I'm going to have teams. I'm going to have teams of people
Yep.
trying to figure out ways to screw you out of 50 cents.
You got it. And yes, because look, it's known out there that competitors are taking 50 to 60% of what the rider's paying. Like, okay, like there's enough out there for everybody to, fact check me on that. I take 29.7 flat, 29.7% of what the rider pays. That's what I'm taking. That covers our commercial insurance. We have to have commercial insurance.
Yep.
So do our competitors. Like, we all know, you guys are in this industry as well. So commercial insurance is going up, right?
Problematic.
All insurance.
Inflation in this individual sector is the greatest risk opportunity to all of us in this industry. But ultimately, most of that goes to cover those operational fees. We'll make a little bit for connecting the dots and connecting these two people together. But you as a driver will know that Adam paid $20 for this ride, and I'm going to take 29.7. So they see all of that information, completely transparent. So they can also set that marketplace with knowing that I'm going to take 29.7%. So we do have savvy drivers out there that understand that. And it's like, oh, for that kind of ride, I want to make sure that I'm making 20. So yeah, here's what I'm going to overbid so that I can make that $20 for that trip. And it's beautiful.
You're trying to be a connector, right? You look at the other TNCs, you look at the other models, you look at the other rideshare companies. For them, that driver is the commodity, right? And their whole dream is...
Well, they're let's face it, they're the chattel.
Well, exactly. And the dream of most other TNCs is the day that we get self-driving cars, we're going to dump all the drivers, right? That's why they're all working towards that. Whereas the model...
Investing in us.
Oh, yeah. Millions and millions of dollars. And the interesting thing with InDrive and what you guys do, Adam, is that you are truly working on transparently connecting those passengers with drivers. You're not so much trying to play the commodity shell game like Ken was talking about.
Well, somebody...
not interested in that at all.
And somebody basically said, this is really like, and I hate the analogy, but this is an Airbnb type. I'm going to tell you what I want to charge. So I was with a private equity firm. I do what I call speed dating, where I go up and do lunches, and I talk about the transportation industry in general and take a lot of shots. At no, your industry's this, that, the other thing, and the TNCs, yada yada. And the guy says to me, I don't know what your problem with Uber is. They're just like Booking.com. I'm like, you are dead wrong. And I think I might have even used the F word. So you're dead wrong, because what they do is they manipulate the pricing structure, whereas Booking.com says to the provider, give me whatever inventory you want at whatever price it is, and I'm going to try to move it for you. By the way, if it's too high, I'm going to tell you it's too high. But, I know the inception of Booking.com, the president of American Airlines said, tell me how much I spend for my reservation department. Why wouldn't I do this? But there's a manipulation on the part of those TNCs that you've completely cut out of the discussion on both the consumer side and the driver side, more importantly.
Yes. And it makes it just simpler. I don't need to play games with anybody. And I do think that there's a simpler way that we can do it. And I do believe that we have a model that allows us the opportunity to provide that to the marketplace.
So flash forward.
I want our passengers to fully understand that, hey, when you're taking this trip, if you use us, the driver is going to get the vast majority of what you're paying. Right. And why is that important? Because I can tell you, I made the mistake. I got into a ride. I said that I was paying $72 for the ride. The driver was very upset. That experience was not the most pleasant for me. So I've had that experience.
With the other TNCs.
With the others, yeah. And
as a passenger, driver, you have no control.
You have no control. And
that's just how it works.
And it made the driver upset, and it wasn't the most smooth ride that I've ever had. It's just the truth.
I have two questions. I want to wrap up with one question, and then I want to make a comment. Well, where do you see, flash forward 36 months from now, where do you see the U.S. market for you guys? What's your goals?
Yeah, look, for me, if you would, a lot of people ask me, it's like, okay, LA, Chicago, New York, those are massive markets, and completely agree. Those are all massive markets. I'm looking at, and we just recently launched in Indianapolis, Indiana, right? There are many more cities like Indianapolis, Indiana, than there are New York, LA, and Chicago, right?
Yep.
So I'm also launched in Tallahassee, Florida.
College town.
Yep, exactly. College town, fluctuation in population, and it's based on schooling. So I just recently launched in both of those locations. Why is that important? So if I can build our user base and kind of understand how to make our product work in those particular areas, it completely opens up my expansion plan. Because New York, Chicago, LA, they're always going to be there. Don't get me wrong. Like I will accomplish that target and get to those places. Don't worry. But, can I take this learning? Can I get adoption? Can I become a third viable option in the marketplace that is currently dominated by two people? That's my hopes and dreams. So I do have a fairly aggressive 2025 plan. I'm in the budgeting process now to kind of understand what that's going to be. So coming soon, you'll see the press release when we start rocking and rolling and really get this thing moving in 2025.
Well, and let me ask you something real quick, and
Sure.
I want to make sure we get this in because,
Of course.
a big chunk of our listeners are transportation company owners, right?
Sure.
They've got,
Absolutely.
Diverse fleets that they're using. You've got limos, you've got bus, you've got everything in there.
I love that.
Is there an intersection or is there an interface where you guys kind of work with them or through them or anything there? Or is this something where you guys are purely a TNC recruiting drivers operating in that form?
So I will answer the question somewhat differently, only because here's something else that you don't know about InDrive. We operate in so many spaces throughout the gig economy. So think about the TNC model. We have courier service, freight, handyman services, all with the same type of thought process, right? So if your doorknob breaks, you put out there, hey, I'm looking for a handyman. This is what I'm willing to pay.
Take a picture.
So the same.
You're connecting people.
You're connecting people. So the same rules apply. So I say that to answer your question. We are most definitely looking about how we can make those partnerships so that we can be a connector to people who use those services on a consistent basis. Right. So those conversations are happening. I think I had one 2 weeks ago with a major taxi provider. And so we're continuing to look at how we can connect with these individuals who kind of own these livery companies and how we can best support them. So more to come.
Said,
it's important to me, just to put it honestly.
Are you guys tiered as well then? That's kind of something that we haven't touched on. You look at any of the other TNCs, I can choose whether I want, the fabulous 95 Honda Civic, or I can upgrade, to the black or the premium that's the equivalent of livery. Do you guys tier in that same type of way, or is that something where, you're letting them say what they have available and there isn't necessarily a defined tier?
So think about it like this. So if you want just kind of a standard tier, here's the good thing about that. It goes out to every driver across all classes get to see the order. We do have XL, premium.
Okay.
And so if you select that premium, then that's only going to go to those drivers as well. So only those drivers will see it. And there is a higher recommended price for that particular service. So you have to kind of expect that you're going to pay a little bit more.
Of course.
So that's kind of that's kind of how to think about it. But I know that it's important if I'm at some kind of event and I have 6 people, you need to make sure that you can get a ride big enough. And so you have that option within our app to make that happen.
And Adam, my company does a lot of research. We have portals, we have Dow Jones, Bloomberg, we have name it, we have it, and that's how I found you guys. And I have to tell you, I've come across, lots of Uber wannabes. I've had lots of people call us and say, listen, help us raise capital and we'll give you stock. I'm like, that's not what we do. So neither one, we talked about this, neither one of us wanted to bring on someone that was going to be that kind of a wannabe. What I like about this, and this is game changing, is the marketplace concept. Yep. And the fact that your value proposition is built on equity.
Yes.
And what bothers me when the book Uber Poor comes out, from my publisher, swear to God, I'm in the middle of it. I'll get it done for you. When that book comes out, a piece of that book is going to be talking about the hypocrisy of the company, but also of the passenger. So if you're one of those people at a diversity, equity, and inclusion protest, and then you want to get a ride home 30 miles, and you're hitting a TNC, and you're paying $9 for it, shame on you, because you're talking about, your indignation about corporate fat cats, but in your heart that you just screwed the person that's taking you home. And that's another piece of the what I think has been the dark side of the gig economy.
Sure.
The dark side of the gig economy is the hypocrisy of the person that knows that they're not even covering this poor guy's costs. So that would not come out if the marketplace concept that you're doing wasn't introduced in this country. The other piece that I like about this is I bet you this catches on like wildfire in college towns.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
and Ken, I think you nailed it on the head, right? I mean, if you're doing a 30-mile trip for $9, think of how much is actually getting to that driver. And not only that, think of the fact that driver is just going to have it pop up on a screen. There's no option. There's nothing there.
Yep.
I mean, this is going to be a real disruptor.
And
in that space.
James, we're going to say it. You and I might take a little flack for having InDrive, but I will tell you, I want the information out there, and I want these guys to succeed, because I firmly believe the dark side of the gig economy is hurting people. It's hurting people that do not have the money to waste. They do not realize the mechanics to take the toll it takes on their vehicle, and they're the least able to absorb a repair and maintenance on that piece of equipment. And they think, I just got a $50 ride, therefore I made $50. So we're going to have you on again when you make more headway in the U.S., where we want to thank you for coming on, and we hope we weren't hard on you, and we hope this was enjoyable.
Absolutely. We appreciate having you on, Adam.
Yeah, I'm very appreciative of the conversation, and look, I'm completely open. We need to have open dialogue with regards to what's actually happening out there. And so we shouldn't be afraid of it.
No, you're part of the ecosystem. You are part of the transportation ecosystem.
And I have a responsibility to ensure that I am making it as best for everybody as I possibly can. So that's definitely important to me. So these conversations help have that conversation.
Well, let's keep in touch, and as we discussed in the beginning, we'd love to keep in touch on and offline. And if you need anything from us, let us know.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much, gentlemen.
Take care.
Thanks again, Adam. Take it easy.
Thank you for listening to the Ground Transportation Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about PAX Training and to contact James, go to paxtraining.com. And for more information about driving transactions and to contact Ken, go to drivingtransactions.com. We'll see you next time on the Ground Transportation Podcast.